Good morning, everyone. We'll get started here. I know there's quite a few folks that'll start trickling in as we go, but would like to respect time and get things going. My name is Colin Burnham. I'm the co-founder of the Starfish Canada. I'd like to start by telling you that I'm coming to you today from the traditional territories of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, also known as the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. And this is a truly national event. I'm based in Victoria, British Columbia, but we have people coming in from coast to coast to coast. And so no matter where you are, I think it's really important to recognize the territory that you're on as a meaningful step towards reconciliation. But not only just knowing exactly whose traditional territories you're on, but learning more about them and their ways of being and the ways that we can truly take steps forward towards reconciliation. There are lots of really cool things online you can lean into to learn more. There are even things that'll where you can put in your address and they'll tell you whose territory you're on or your city. So I think that even those small steps can make a big difference in the scope of things. I'm not hosting today, so I'm going to actually pass it off here pretty quick. The only thing I'd like to make sure that we note is that this call is being recorded. If you have any issues with that, you can message me directly using the chat feature in Zoom, and we'll be as accommodating as we possibly can. But from here on in, I'm going to introduce you to Devon Fernandes, who's actually a previous top 25 environmentalist under 25. And he also has been running the Kitchener-Waterloo Library of Things and also works at Humber College. I'm very excited to be introducing you to Devon Fernandes.
Great, thanks a lot, Kyle. I'm really happy to be here with all of you. And I'm even happier that Kyle introduced me as a previous winner and not an old winner. So I'm going to take that in stride, and I'm hoping that we can really hear all of your really exciting stories. So today there's going to be no slides, no gimmicks. We're really going to be hearing from the stories of each of the 4 finalists today. The Starfish Canada has provided some light coaching to each of them in order to share their story, but this really isn't about resumes or about different accomplishments. It's about each of the unique experiences that each of them have shared. And so just to give you a bit of the lay of the land for this event, I'm going to pass the microphone to each of the different speakers for them to share their story. You're more than welcome to use the chat feature to ask questions while that's going on. And I'd really encourage that, because sometimes, especially now in this virtual kind of setting, these questions are really fruitful to the discussion and weaving together those different stories. And you can also use the reaction button at the bottom and end of the screen to either applause or give thumbs up, which is really appreciated. So before we get started with the different speakers, I think it's great that we have an industry representative to kind of give a virtual high five to our 4 finalists. So I'd like to pass the microphone over to Benjamin Ernst from Ernst Ice Cream. I believe he just joined us, and I'd like to pass it over to him so he can provide some opening words for us.
Thanks, Devon. Thanks for having me, everyone. Yeah, just very happy to be here speaking with young, entrepreneurially orientated activists. It took me until I was well into my 30s to have the epiphany that activism and entrepreneurialism really go hand in hand. And I think that in the midst of a global pandemic, there's no better time, there's no more necessary time to apply the creativity, the combination of creativity and values that come with entrepreneurialism. So I want to extend a heartfelt high five to everyone on this call, all the top 25, under 25. And I can't wait to hear from you folks as to what you're engaged in. With that, yeah, I'll just say thank you for your work and your efforts and your commitments.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's often such I find it so kind of welcoming to get advice and just inspiration from people who are really trying to kind of work up to, and we all have to collaborate together in whatever industry we're in. So again, I'm seeing some applauses and thumbs up, which is great. And we're just going to move quickly into what today's theme is all about. And so today is really about change that happens in so many different places, whether it be a community group, not-for-profit, or social enterprises. As I'm sure we can all attest to, building a movement isn't easy, and sustaining it is even harder. And so a lot of leaders have learned through trial, error, iterations, and successes, and they've built organizations that have inspired all of us, me included, and I think they'll inspire you. And so I'm really excited to hear their different stories that they'll each share. And so again, just a reminder to please use the Q&A feature. You'll have an opportunity to ask each other questions afterwards, which is great. Sometimes when the finalists ask each other questions is almost the most fruitful discussion. And our goal is to be wrapped up in about 5 minutes. So we'll give each finalist an opportunity to speak for around 5 minutes to share their story. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to Alexi Goodman. So I personally started a business that shares items to reduce waste. And so it's needless to say that I followed Alexi's work on waste pretty closely since I started reading about their work in the CBC. I'm really interested in their unique story about how talking trash can be a pursuit for livelihood. So I'll pass it over to Alexa.
Thanks, Devon. Hi, everyone. I'm Alexi Goodman, founder and director of Stop Trashing It, and I talk trash for a living. Today, I want to tell you about some of my deepest frustrations, struggles, and triumphs, and how that sparked something great like starting my own nonprofit. The plastic problem is pretty well known, so why aren't people changing their habits to reflect that? This was driving me bonkers. How could people be aware of the problem and not change their ways? Nearly 4 years ago, that train of thought pushed me to start my own low-waste journey, starting with single-use coffee cups. I tackled this simple change by holding myself accountable to no reusable coffee cup, then no coffee. And it worked. I focused on eliminating one item at a time because going zero waste cold turkey was overwhelming and honestly just too much pressure. So instead, I adopted a low-waste lifestyle, eliminating single-use items in a stepwise manner because it's realistic and achievable. Back in 2018, when I was completing my Master's of Marine Management at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia on unceded Mi'kmaq territory, I took an environmental education course, which sparked the idea for Stop Trashing It. We had a project where we unpacked environmental education campaigns put out by large nonprofit organizations, and my group focused on plastic pollution. After looking at different social media campaigns, it became quite evident that there was a lot of awareness around the issue, but not a lot of action. And that's where it started. Inspired by my own journey, at the end of the class presentation, I decided to challenge my classmates to eliminate one single-use item for a year in an effort to shift this awareness into action. And Stop Trashing It grew from there. Within the first month, we had 100 people take the pledge to eliminate a single-use item for a year. Simultaneously, a good friend of mine encouraged and helped me start a social media campaign to grow the pledge, and I haven't looked back since. I asked for help in creating the branding, website, and a promotional video, which is online. Even though the pledge is no longer our main focus today, Stop Trashing It has over 1,500 followers across social media, where we've built a community of folks trying to change their waste habits. We're solutions focused, sharing tips and tricks on low waste living through social media, outreach events, workshops, day-to-day chats. I've engaged with countless people who are inspired by and motivated to change their waste habits, all because of Stop Trashing It. Turning awareness into action really is working. But I'd be lying if I said it was all smooth sailing. Like anything, there have been ups and downs. For starters, I really didn't know what I had gotten myself into when I started. Heck, I didn't even realize I was running a nonprofit for the first half a year. I used to joke and say that Stop Trashing It happened by accident, because it really did. From challenging people to take a pledge in a classroom to having a board of directors and youth ambassadors across the country, it's been pretty surreal. There were a lot of things that I had to learn as I encountered them. You know, I didn't know how to navigate the legal ends of running a nonprofit. I didn't know how to build strong proposals for funding. I didn't know how to run multiple social media platforms. I didn't even know how to make a strategic plan. There were times where I was struggling, like I had taken on too much, because Stop Trashing It grew so quickly based on how the community responded, which is so incredibly beautiful. And I'm so grateful for how the community responded to our work. Truth be told, the biggest thing that I had to learn in starting Stop Trashing It was how to ask for help. What we don't know can be scary and overwhelming. We can't do everything on our own. Whether it be starting a nonprofit or doing a small project around the house, asking for help is okay and encouraged. Sometimes all it takes is talking with a friend or family member. Sometimes it's seeking out a mentor for professional advice. And sometimes it's calling the Registry of Joint Stocks again with another question, and that's okay. Questions are okay. My point being is that you don't know what you're capable of until you try. And yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable at times. But if you've had the courage to come this far and start the project or venture or whatever it is, then you can do it. Because after all, growth happens at the edge of our comfort zones. So I encourage you to make that change no matter how scary it might be, whether it be eliminating a single-use item or going vegan or starting that blog or that project you've been thinking about for a while. Changing jobs, or asking for help in taking your startup to the next level, you are more capable than you think. So if you'd like to join the movement in living lighter on the planet, be sure to check out Stop Trashing It on social media. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I really appreciated many different things you said, everything from Stop Trashing It almost, you joke that it almost happened by accident. I think a lot of us can attest to that. And I think it's the thing that really kind of caught my eye was that even though there's so much uncertainty and you have to work through so many different ideas, oftentimes it's your like resilience and pursuit and the why at the end of the day that really drives you. So I think that really connects well to our next speaker. So I'm going to pass the microphone over to Christopher Chong, who the reason for his business is all too important, and I think you'll all share in your admiration for why the why is that much more important. We're trying to decide either from a big picture and strategy to dealing with the minute details of a business. So I'll pass it over to Christopher.
Thanks, Devon. Hi, everyone. I'm Christopher Chong, and I'm a 17-year-old student from Vancouver, Canada. So my experience with SproutUp helped me realize the importance of the why. The purpose for which your organization exists. Allow me to set the stage. In October of 2018, 30 of the entrepreneurship/marketing 12 students and I were tasked with creating a nonprofit company to solve a big problem in our community. Given that we only had roughly 6 months to pull this off, we wanted to find a way to push forward Vancouver's Greenest City Action Plan goals, creating 100% biodegradable horticultural kits to raise money for the BC Children's Hospital Foundation. 2 months into distribution, and sales weren't doing as well as we'd hoped. We'd manufactured a bunch of kits, thrown up our advertising, displaying our aesthetically beautiful product, and we were still having some difficulty getting them into the hands of our target market. So what I did was, I asked the successful customers that we did have why they bought our product in particular. Why did they choose our product over others? And they all said the same thing. It wasn't the high quality or the fact that it was handmade, which we'd advertised on our social media channels, that compelled them to buy these kits, but the fact that something like this lined up with what they believed, so much so that they wanted to be, they were willing to pay upwards of $10 per each kit. They yearned to help create a more sustainable future, to be the environmental change that they wanted to see, and to be part of something bigger than themselves. And so this was my epiphany moment. I found that SproutUp had to convey its motivations more clearly to show people the why that SproutUp exists. We need to dig deeper and make that why more pronounced and less subtle. Through interacting with our target customers, I came to the realization that people weren't buying our products for what they were or how they were made, but for why they were made. We had to get this grasp on why exactly SproutUp exists, the reason for which we were even doing this in the first place. And by pinpointing this why, what SproutUp stood for and what the people of the company stood for, SproutUp would not only motivate our team to work more cohesively with the mindset of being pushed forward by this why, but compel our target audience to empathize with the mission and take part in it themselves. SproutUp taught me that it's all about the why, that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. I found this was essential for me to ensure the success of the whole group, acting as an empathetic and patient leader to keep all aspects of the company in line with our core mission. I did my best to propel our company towards the right direction, to ensure that every action that the company took would not compromise on its goal to create a greener world, but rather to strengthen this goal. This meant everything from biking to filming locations rather than driving, and getting supplies from other eco-friendly local businesses. Because of our understanding of this elusive why, and our clear conveyance of this to our consumers, supporters, and even our own team, we were able to donate the more than $1,000 in profit that we'd made to the BC Children's Hospital Foundation, the most of any of the 8 companies in the competition. Now, this isn't to say that simply knowing your why is all you need to be successful in every industry there is, but it means that one would have a much easier time finding individuals that would work with them in this organization with passion, blood, sweat, and tears, rather than individuals who simply work for the paycheck. This vast difference in motivation can be what makes or breaks an organization. For my involvement in pushing forward the company, I was selected as one of 5 principal presenters to represent the company at the pitch portion of the Innovate competition. SproutUp ended up winning the Judges' Choice Award. And to this day, I firmly believe that this is in large part due to our unique understanding of this why, where other student companies failed to grasp and convey this motivation properly. In conclusion, no matter what your organization is, whether it be in the tech industry, environmental science, or e-commerce, the number one thing to have a deep understanding of is your why. And through this, you can not only motivate yourself, but those around you to help push forward your company in the name of that mission, and work alongside each other with vigor and passion. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much for sharing that, Christopher. There were so many pieces in there that I think tied really well into Alexa's story as well. I think the idea that the difference in motivation and your reason for why is just so pivotal. And obviously all these stories are going to tie well and kind of like weave a fabric relating to sustainability. But as we're moving into Vanessa Fiore's talk and sharing her story, I think it's really important that we look at, you know what, these whys aren't just a business value proposition at the end of the day. They really connect people and community. And so I'm really interested to hear Vanessa's take on how community can really rally behind that. And so I'm going to pass that over to her.
Thank you so much, Devon. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today and for listening to us present. And a big thank you to Starfish Canada for selecting me and all the other winners as top 25 environmentalists under 25. It's a very honorable distinction to receive. So, like everyone here, I'm here to share my journey and my story, specifically pertaining to social entrepreneurship. So I'll be talking about my project called Food Refined, and this project focuses on repurposing food waste and transforming it into a usable form, specifically energy and fertilizer. So my journey began actually from a single tweet. That's right. It was a tweet made by Catherine McKenna, who is the former Minister of Environment and Climate Change of Canada. And her tweet was announcing to all youth across North America between the ages of 18 and 24 who have a sustainable idea to submit it to the Commission for Environmental Cooperation's Youth Innovation Challenge. I know this is a lot, but for those of you who don't know who the Commission for Environmental Cooperation is, it's a coalition between the 3 North American governments, Canada, US, and Mexico, and they basically unite to talk about what each of their respective countries are doing to push for a more sustainable future in country. So this was their first year that they were proposing this challenge, and they wanted all youth who had a sustainable idea to submit it. And at the time I was 17 years old, about to graduate high school, and I thought, okay, I'll be 18 in a couple months. So I I might as well apply to the challenge. And prior to this, I had no experience with business development and entrepreneurship whatsoever. In fact, I was very against any sort of business development because in my mind, they were big corporations were the culprit for all of the environmental degradation that we see today. But one thing that helped change my mind on this was a couple months prior to seeing that tweet, I actually participated in a hackathon where I was invited as part of my school board. They were organizing it. I was the president of Eco Council at the time, and my teacher supervisor encouraged me to participate. And I fell in love with the process of ideation and innovation and just creating an idea that will help solve a specific problem. So fast forward to when I saw the tweet, I decided to ask my best friend, Adam, who was the most business savvy 17-year-old who I knew at the time, and I still think he's the most business savvy person I know today. I asked him if he wanted to help me create an idea that we could submit to the challenge and potentially erect. So we came up with the idea small scale waste to energy, and we wanted to create a technology that converts food waste into energy on site. So we wanted to target grocery stores and other corporations within the food industry, and we wanted to plant this technology at their location, at their sites, and they would essentially put their food waste in, it would convert it into biogas, and then that biogas can then be converted into energy, which they can then feed back into the grid. So we submitted this idea, and we actually were announced as the winners of the 2017 Youth Innovation Challenge by the CEC. So we got $5,000 in seed funding, and they also flew us out to Prince Edward Island to present our idea in front of the commission. So this was very exciting, and given that I was really new at this, I had no idea what social entrepreneurship entailed or business development entailed. I definitely had a lack of confidence in terms of my abilities and my knowledge on the subject matter. So after Adam and I had graduated from high school, we spent that summer researching how we can develop a prototype, how we can develop a business. And we also ended up creating a very basic backyard prototype so we can better understand the technology and the process of it. But unfortunately, it wasn't completed because we both ended up moving to university, and we only had 2 months to do this. And ever since we moved to university, our priorities began to shift, and unfortunately, we decided not to work together anymore, and I continued to move forward with the project, and Adam is working on his own initiatives now. So at this point, I was kind of lost in terms of what I can do and how I can erect this idea. I didn't have any sort of engineering expertise. I didn't have a partner who was knowledgeable in business to help me. I had no idea how to even start this or what resources to access. So I started asking around in my school. And being in university, it definitely helps to have access to an abundance of resources. So I was really grateful for that. And I ended up reaching out to my entrepreneurship hub. That's what the club is called. And I was provided with some expertise, but here and there, but it didn't really get me too far. So when I was in my second year of university, I was asked to participate in the We Incubation Hub. And this is an incubator that's organized by We organization. And I decided, okay, why not? I'll go ahead and join, and maybe I'll learn a couple things. So I did, and it ended up being a great experience, not only for my learning, but I also acquired a mentor from it as well, who was there to help me with business development and learning about entrepreneurship in general, and that was really valuable. In that same time period, I also participated in SproutUp Weekend, which is just a nationwide hackathon that happens every season within universities. And there I met Nick, he is a student studying chemical engineering, and he's receiving his PhD right now. So I ended up getting the engineering expertise I need, as well as the business expertise that I needed. And through the We Incubation Hub, I ended up presenting my idea. One of the judges recommended that instead of trying to build my own prototype, maybe I can reach out to other companies who have existing technologies that they were hoping to market and scale to new customer segments. So that's what I did. I ended up reaching out to one company called CCI Bioenergy, who has their own microscale anaerobic digestion system. That's what it's called. in scientific terms. And then I also ended up reaching out to the executive director of ZooShare. And ZooShare is a project where they're building a biogas plant at the Toronto Zoo. And he also had experience and had some technologies that he wanted to sell as well. So I'm happy to report that I'm currently collaborating with those two companies right now, and I'm working full-time with Regenerate Biogas, who's in charge of running ZooShare, and I'm working with the executive director of that company full-time as part of my co-op, and I received a grant in order to do so. So the moral of my story that I just wanted to share is to continue to be perseverant and determined to accomplish your goal. Always keep it in mind, but always be willing to pivot as well, because it might not, whatever you have envisioned might not exactly become the reality, but that can be a positive thing as well, because it can help you push towards whatever solution or whatever vision you're trying to accomplish. And also, most importantly, I think it's so beneficial to access the resources that are available around you. My mentor, Tyler, he would always tell me, don't ever be afraid to ask for help, because there's so many people who are willing to help you and are willing to provide their expertise. And I can't stress enough how helpful that has been for me throughout this process. And although I still have a lot to learn, I feel a lot more confident with my abilities and with where I'm headed. So I'm very grateful for that. And I hope you have taken away a lot from this presentation. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. That was really cool. And it's pretty apparent when you're listening to these stories how every single finalist has so many different things that they're working on, but it's that passion and that energy that really pushes you through them. So I really appreciate your story. And I have so many questions for you as well as all the other finalists. I hope it's not just my questions that are going to be asked. So if you do have any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat. Something that I was reflecting on as you were talking was that, you know what, all these roles really come together and you learn so much from every previous role that you've had. And I'm really interested to hear Jacqui Bastian's story. So as someone who does eat a plant-based diet and tries to encourage students at my college to do the same, I know there's a lot of challenges in that. And holding multiple roles that I know Jacqui has, like at the Youth Climate Lab, is never an easy thing to do. So I'm really interested to hear her story and how she conveys that passion throughout. So I'll pass it over to Jacqui.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacqui Bastianon. I'm the co-founder of Planted Project, and I'm also the comms manager at YCL, like Devon referred to. So thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you so much for this nomination. It's really exciting to be recognized. So my story really starts a couple of years ago in my house, in my bed, sleeping, and being really worried about climate change. It's something that happened to me throughout my childhood and still happened to me in university, tossing and turning, being worried about this issue and really feeling super powerless and like I couldn't really do anything about this gigantic issue that most of us on this call worry about. And so it was at this time really that this idea popped into my head. I have this love for community, I have this love for the environment, and I also have this love for cooking. So I decided that maybe I could bring up these things all together into something at the time that was called Cooking with Jacqui B. So what started was basically we'd have these meetings every week in my home during university. Once a week, there'd be about a group of 8 to 10 people. Everyone would bring an ingredient, everyone would come, everyone would bring a small donation to an environmental organization of my choice, and we'd all cook together. So cooking is something that really brings people together. We'd have music going on, so there'd be like an 80s dance party. People would be singing, people would be chopping, people would be all around this kitchen in this cozy home, all being bonded over this food. So it was really something that was super special. And I was really scared the first time that no one was going to show up. I don't know if anyone else has had this experience. You start something and you're really scared about it, and you put it out into the world and you're worried that no one else is going to be stoked about it. But we put it out there and a couple people showed up. And in this Facebook group that we had for people to sign up, more and more people started coming, and these things started selling out and the demand was there, and more new faces were starting to come. And this whole project was important to me, and it started gaining more importance, and it became this very pivotal thing in my life when I went vegan in 2017. And that really changed things for me because I started learning about the connection between food systems and the environment, which is something I'd never really thought about before. But as I started to change my own diet, I started incorporating this into the meetings. And a lot of people didn't even know at the time that things were changing because the food was still really great and really yummy and it tasted really good. And so people started being like, what's a chia egg, or what's tofu, or how do I cook these things? So it brought on this whole educational aspect in this very fun way, because there's different ways of approaching different diets, but I really think that this way more gets people curious and excited about trying something new rather than scaring them into being a certain way, especially when you show them that it can be delicious, good for the environment, and good for the animals. So it's sort of this very try reason thing that you can do, which is really cool. So this started going on for a couple of years. I was really excited about it, super passionate about it. And by the time I got to last year, 2019, I had graduated from journalism, and I was not really sure what I wanted to do with journalism, but I knew that I had this love for this project. So I approached my co-founder, Georgia Fox, who was just a friend at the time, and we both looked at each other and talked about this idea, and we said, what if we started a business? What if we turned this into something? And we laughed about it. We still talk about this today, about how we laughed about it, being like, we're not business owners or communications or journalists, but can we do this? And we came back a week later and we had all of these ideas, and we thought, we're going to try it. We're just going to do it. So we started looking on the internet, Googling things, how to be an entrepreneur, how to run different businesses, started looking at different platforms, got enrolled in an Invest Ottawa program, like a startup program. We got some money, some seed money to start. We found a new space to start running cooking workshops, and we reinvented this idea of a cooking meeting into something a little bit more elevated to more people, and to this very educational, very grounded thing that we now run, which is a social enterprise. So a lot of our profits go to Penny Lane this year, which is a sanctuary just outside of Ottawa. And yeah, so people come to these workshops, they all cook together, and there's this very community-based vibe. So everyone comes and they're very excited. They get to meet people, and they also get to learn about this new food. They get to learn some new resources, and they get to keep the recipes and bring them to their home. So really, what really drives us every day is being so passionate about something. So we wake up every day and we love what we do, really excited about what we do. And I think that's the most important thing I've taken away as an entrepreneur over the last year, is if you love something a lot, like, you will put in all of the time, no matter how many jobs you work, no matter how many things you volunteer for. If you love something, you're going to make it happen. You're going to make it work. And especially in this time of COVID-19, things have changed a lot for us, but we're still working together and finding that grounding together, and our community really supports us. And especially now at home, we're doing videos or finding other resources to give people, and just little by little, we know that people are interested in plant-based eating, and if you try it even a couple of times a week, we don't need everyone to go vegan. We need a bunch of people to try to go a little bit more vegan, and that's something that everyone can do. So yeah, that's our story.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh yes, I have to applaud that, of course. There's so many pieces about that kind of relate to everyone else's story and my own, in terms of being like, you're kind of laughing at yourself when you first start out, because you're like, this isn't possible. What is this? And then as you start to get wins here and there, you're like, oh, I can actually do this. And eventually you start celebrating everything possible. I remember at one point when we were starting the KW Library of Things, we found another outlet in our shop that we didn't have, and we were like, we have another electrical outlet. This is amazing. And it's these really small wins that you all celebrate. So as I really appreciate all the stories that you shared, because they all weave this idea of kind of not believing in yourself at first, but really understanding that as soon as you get that community behind you, as soon as you believe in your own kind of perseverance and determination, you can really prosper and grow it into whatever it's going to be. So I'd really encourage everyone to type your questions into the chat box, and then we'll direct the questions. They can be to either one of the finalists or to all of them. They can be as specific as like one of the projects that you heard them mentioned, or generally, what are your thoughts on specific issues? So one of the questions that I have so far is, can you talk a bit about, and this is for each of the finalists, so we'll start with Alexa, if that's okay, to put you on the spot, is what are the qualities or characteristics of someone who really supported you from the beginning? Oftentimes, like when you're starting a business or when you're starting an initiative, it can be really challenging when you're working on your own, but did you have someone who kind of pushed you and helped you as well?
Yeah, I kind of talked about Sean a bit. Sean had originally helped me get the project off the ground, from just a simple pledge to something more solid. And it's not just in a project partner, but in anyone. Listening is really important. If you can listen to someone's idea, no matter how wacky it is, or how far out it might seem, just give people the time of day to express their idea, because it's probably a great idea. And even if you don't think it is, someone out there probably thinks it's a great idea. Everyone's ideas and thoughts are valid. So giving someone the time of day is first and foremost most important. But as soon as I meet someone and I hear about their ideas, I start thinking of, how can I help you? Or is there anything that you need that that might help you farther along in your process of, whatever it is? And I think that comes from a place of me being a caring and helping person. But also, I always appreciate those offers when I'm talking about a project or an idea and someone says, that's a great idea. How can I help you leverage that? That's always really appreciated. You don't always have to offer help, but just being able to listen and say, that's a great idea. I think that this would be really well received, would go a long way.
Yeah, I think that idea of listening to someone who's trying to offer help or making sure there's definitely important. Christopher, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. So when I worked on SproutUp, I worked alongside 30, like my entire class of Business 12. So one of the most important things was being able to communicate. So collaboration together was key. Being able to bounce ideas off each other and refine them and make them better than they would be otherwise. Also being able to listen, super important, because you have to be able to take each other's ideas into consideration instead of just like knowing them. Well, yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Vanessa?
Well, I think for me, and with my experience, I recognize that it is important to have access or connections to people who have various expertise in certain subject matters. So, for example, with the people who I've worked with, my friend Adam, he was very knowledgeable in business, for example, whereas me, I was kind of more knowledgeable on the science side. And then I started working with Nick, who was more knowledgeable on the engineering side. So I find that it definitely helps getting different expertise from different areas, just because you're never going to be an expert in everything, but it definitely helps when you have people who are more knowledgeable in certain subject matters than you are, and just to provide their expertise to you in order to help you advance. I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Jacqui, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I'm going to echo Vanessa as well, to find other people who have different characteristics than you, because everyone has their own strengths. But if you're working just with your own strengths, you're really leaving out a whole possibilities of other people who can give input. And I think that's really where my co-founder, Georgia, really meets me. We have very different strengths, and our different sets really complement each other. And I think that really helps, because sometimes when I'm stuck on a problem, she solves things. And when she's stuck on a problem, we help each other, and it really grows and moves us forward.
Great, yeah. And I am cognizant of time, but I have one other question that I think is really interesting for each of the finalists. And it is, what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you expect to do what you're doing? And what did you wish, there's a few questions here, but what did you wish young students would learn more of so they are able to pursue diverse careers? So Alexa, would you like to take the first stab at that? If not, we can pass it on.
Sure, no problem. Well, I wanted to be a lot of things when I was growing up, but I started scuba diving at the age of 10, thanks to my dad, and immediately I was just infatuated with the water. I had always been a water baby, and I knew from a young age that I wanted to be a marine biologist, and I am. I got my Bachelor of Science in Marine Biology and Sustainability, and then I pursued my Master's of Marine Management. And when I first started off on this career path, a lot of people told me that I wouldn't be able to make a living in saving the environment, that there's no money in any of this. And even though I don't make money with Stop Trashing It, it's, you know, it's a nonprofit. It's the side hustle to the side hustle to the side hustle. If you are passionate enough about something, it doesn't matter what you do, you can make an honest living. And, you know, you don't need to be making a lot of money to be happy, but if you're passionate about something, as we've heard today, there's going to be a way to make it work. And I'm really glad that I didn't let any of that foolish nonsense get through to my head, because you know what? I'm doing just fine. So, to anyone out there who thinks that, you know, there might not be money in doing what you're interested in, if you're passionate, just go for it.
Yeah, for sure. Christopher, anything to add to that?
Yeah. So when I was a little kid, I did a lot of like Legos and robotics. So I guess I wanted to be an engineer. So just learning how the world works and how to create stuff out of that was really interesting to me. And by now I've sort of pivoted from that to do like a double major maybe in engineering and business, so I can strike the perfect balance. And my number one advice for anyone like who's my age, I guess, to like experiment with as many things as possible, because I never would have discovered my love for entrepreneurship and business had I not like enrolled in the program Innovate, or like any other business program in your local area. Just take advantage of as many opportunities as you can, and you'll be able to discover what you're passionate about. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, the experimentation piece is definitely key. Vanessa?
For me, I actually wanted to be a veterinarian for a really long time, just because I loved animals. Then that kind of transitioned to wanting to become a wildlife biologist, because I realized I was more interested in wildlife. And now I'm not really sure where exactly I'm headed. I'm going to keep working on my project and see where that goes. But in terms of determining your future, I feel like there's this pressure in trying to figure out what exactly you have to do at such a young age. And I don't think it's fair or necessary, because I think you can get any degree and then move on to work in any field. And I've been hearing that all of high school and all of university as well. I hear of engineers going into business, or people getting a science degree going into communications. Just because you have a certain degree or a certain specialization in something, that doesn't mean you have to stick with it for the rest of your life, and it doesn't mean you're closing any doors necessarily. You can, as long as you have that basis of education, I think you can pursue whatever you want. So just to be open-minded and put not so much pressure on yourself is definitely helpful.
I love every aspect of that. I'm a psychologist who works in sustainability, and every day people are always confused about that.
Yeah.
Jacqui, anything to add?
Yeah, when I was younger, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I just had this deep passion for climate change and the environment that was instilled in me when I was like 7 or 8 years old by my grandparents. And I think ever since then, I've tried a lot of different things and have been in a lot of different things, but that one thing that I've always been passionate about has never really changed. It's always been really on course for me. It's kind of, I don't know, I feel like I'm destined to do it. I don't know, I don't believe in destiny, but that's kind of how it feels like. And I think the lesson that I would give to my past self is that not feeling overwhelmed by the bigger picture and realizing that collective action of a lot of different people together can create a movement, and it's not all the pressure on each individual. So no matter what different like sector you're in, whether you're a psychologist or a journalist like me, like in our own time and our own side hustles, if we all work towards a collective goal, we can be really powerful with all of us together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That collective is really what's going to sustain us. And I really appreciate each of your answers today, and I want to give all of you an applause. And I think the one thing that I'm really appreciative of is how optimistic I am leaving this webinar today. I'm going to go back to work filled with stories and hope and a lot of determination to see my work through even more. And I just really want to say I appreciate all the time and all the commitment that went into each of the different journeys that you're on. So with that, I'm going to kind of wrap up this webinar. I'm going to toss it back to Kyle to give some concluding remarks, but thanks again, each of you.
Awesome. Well, again, that was fantastic. I've been doing these all week, and every morning I wake up very excited because I get to hear some stories from some pretty incredible people. I want to thank you all for sharing your stories. I think Ben from Ernst Ice Cream as well for giving the virtual high five, and Devon for being a fantastic host as always. We're going to send an email after this to ask for any feedback that you have about these events. We're going to do them next week as well. And if you would like to see more conversations and stories from our top 25 winners this year, please do join us next week. And also, we'll be sending out the recording of this as well. So you'll be able to review this on your own time as well. Thanks again, everyone, for participating. It's been great seeing you all, and I hope you have a great day.